Coming up today on LMM, I give a talk, see some model railways and go for a ride in a brand new rail vehicle.
Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM. Today me and Lozz are at the Very Light Rail National Innovation Centre for their family day. Now, I'm doing a talk, but the reason we're starting this video in a slightly unusual way is we started up there where we were told to turn up, and then we were told we don't need to be there, so we sent downstairs where we were told walk along this corridor which opened out into nowhere, and now we've been told walk along this way. We're completely lost.
However, we have bumped into many of you already.
Yeah, it's been a good start. It's really, really nice start to the day. It's lovely bumping into you guys. I would just like to know where I'm meant to be, though. I mean, I'm assuming that we, have a pass or something for today.
At some point, we're going to get somewhere, and they're going to charge us 20 quid each.
Yeah, we're going to be charged entry fee.
Having walked around the circumference of the building, we ended up where the queue for the Coventry light rail vehicle rides were. Here, throughout the day, many different entertainers would be set up to keep people in the queue amused. And when we arrived, there was a band playing. And having sat and listened to the relevant music for a few moments, we found somebody and asked where we needed to be.
We've gone. This is where we were told to go, and they went, "You what?"
Maybe go to reception. Guess where we started? It was reception.
It was reception. Maybe I'm not meant to be here.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Not the first time you snuck in somewhere you're not supposed to.
So we went and retraced our steps to go back to reception, finding the whole thing very amusing.
I am quite tired. I was up fixing my speech and getting to the right runtime of 19 minutes till very much the wee hours. And this probably isn't as funny as it feels right now, but right now this is hilarious.
This is a very white hallway.
Isn't it? It's cool.
Yeah. Clean.
Should we get back in the lift and go back upstairs?
Should we go back out this door and talk to the man again?
Schindler's lift.
And having completed our round tour of the facility, we returned to reception, who went, "Oh yes, you're in the auditorium. That's the next door on the left."
So this is one of the main things of my day, is I'm going to be doing a talk up here on the history of rail, something that I know not much about, so it's going to be good fun. What you can also see is, look at all the people that are here to see me. Well, if nobody turns up, at least it means that, all my mistakes won't be noticed. Oh, look, it's me. Enthusiast.
By the time I was due to give my talk, a load of you had turned up and filled the auditorium. And if you want to hear the speech in full, that will be a video coming out later in the week. So we'll gloss over it for now and show you some of the other stuff that was going on. There were a load of stands and exhibits talking about the future of rail, but the coolest by a long way were these robot dogs by Next Gen Rye, including the smaller version. Now you might be saying, oh, these are similar to Boston Dynamics ones, and they are, but they're more durable, can carry more weight, and have a longer battery life. They're also waterproof and can walk on their rear legs. The idea is that you can send these things into tunnels to do surveying work and carrying things without risking your human workforce. Leaving the world of science fiction behind, there are a number of model railways in attendance, including a small town USA, modelled on the feeling of 1950s America with a small heritage railway running through a town. St. Marie is a layout after my own heart. It was built in under a month. They started with nothing more than an empty baseboard, a box of Cato track and an idea. It's based on a fictitious sleepy town somewhere in the southeast of France on the day the Tour de France comes through. And showing that you don't need to have a huge amount of room to have a model railway was to hatchet but packed full of little bits of detail and showing just how versatile the narrow gauge is. Riverside was never meant to be an operating layout. Rather, it started life as a photo plank for the builder to be able to place his models on to get a nice picture of them. Over the years, it slowly evolved into an operating modular layout with grand plans for the future. And I love this part of the model railway hobby, how ideas develop and evolve over time from humble beginnings to a much bigger and more visually impressive layout. Staying with 009 but moving to the heartlands of Wales was something which I'm not even going to try to pronounce its name in Welsh, which made big use of 3D printed locomotives on Cato chassis, which shows that the model railway hobby can be accessible and affordable for everybody. Perhaps my favourite layout on show, and I use the term very loosely, was this, with a Hornby pug charging around the centre of two bicycle tyres. Now, this uses the same principle as a hamster running in its wheel. The locomotive charges up, forcing the wheel to turn backwards. And what I really liked about this is it shows just how durable and stuck to the track a Hornby pug is. Look how rough that is, and look how much it kicks and bounces, but it stays on the rail. This was absolutely fabulous to watch, and I want to build one. The first N-gauge layout was Gibbon Quarry, modelled somewhere in England during the early days of British Railways diesels. It had changed hands during the building process, and one wonders if this was what the original builder had intended for the layout. This features a country station where trains can come and pause, and a small goods yard next door to a quarry where trains are loaded with the freshly quarried product to be distributed via the network.
It does have a very limited fiddle yard at the back here.
The first layout to take inspiration from a real place was Victoria Bridge, modelled on one of my favourite locations, the aforementioned Victoria Bridge on the Severn Valley Railway, and this is a location that I know very well, having photographed and videoed trains going over it on many occasions, several of which you can see in videos on the channel. This I really loved, as I always love a bit of terrain height change in a layout, and I spent a long time chatting to the owners of the layout and watching appropriate Severn Valley trains heading back and forth. They said it's modelled in the mid-1990s, with appropriate stock and locomotives at that time.
In fact, it looks better going 10 to first, because the guys in the cab are sort of looking backwards. Yeah. So this is a Dapol IVAC 262 chassis with pony wheels chopped off. And then the very old body from a parish tank cut and shut short. And it's not scale, but it's equally. It looks like. Yeah. It's a bit big, but it's you can't argue with it. It needs some steam lights. And the carriages are all fairly faithful ones in Severn Valley too. Yeah. The back one. See, it's got porthole windows, so it's got a passenger window as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It really makes it really good.
It needs to. We've put the buffer in a carriage for safekeeping.
Can you drop next one? And this one?
So we've got some carriages that are awaiting repaints and some that look a bit fresh.
The rails are closer together. This is 2 feet long. So this is a model of a railway like that.
Oh, it's a modern small railway.
Yeah, so it's a smaller railway in general that you get for scale.
Yeah.
Being up on.
The other thing I really liked was the owner and his son were fans of the channel, and watching the videos had influenced the choice of getting this 9F evening star, and that made me really happy. And with the track staying the same width apart but changing the scale was Come Here, modelled somewhere in the foothills of Wales, with small trains running through the Welsh valleys. Once again showcasing that you don't need a huge amount of space to have a really nice and highly detailed layout.
Layout? Yeah.
but it makes it expensive to do.
Yeah.
For one style.
Oh yeah.
They run around.
Yeah.
I've had to get special couplings for them. It took us 9 hours to get the first loco running, and 12 hours to be...
Keeping with the narrow gauge theme but jumping up a scale to NG7 was the Basin. Set in the 1920s in eastern England, the layout is a snapshot of a post-war industrial area where the railway serves the canal and the local industries. I think this was the first time that I'd seen one of Bachmann's new quarry Honslets actually out working on a layout, and it was really refreshing to see something other than Wales being modelled in the narrow gauge, and I'm always a fan of a dockyard or a canal side railway.
Pretty well. It's pretty well layouts.
In 00 was a Blackbrook Holt, set deep in the Black Country during the 1960s in an area dominated by the works of an iron and boiler maker. Blackbrook is a real location, made locally famous for its humpback canal bridge. But most of the inspiration for the model has come from a now defunct railway called the Bumble Hole Line. This was just south of the Dudley Railway Tunnel on the Stour Bridge line. The railway has a goods branch that served the canal basin with 1 or 2 industries. The layout is split, with the top one representing a small holt, which is based on a real location called Windmill End Holt. The lower level takes inspiration from Withymoor Goods Yard with a lot of modeller's licence and allows for a load of shunting movements to be undertaken. The final layout was Halfpenny Green in 00. This was a proposed but never built railway which would have linked Wombourne and Bridgnorth. The layout envisions how this would have looked had it reached Halfpenny Green, but upon reaching it, plans for the extension fell through and this became the terminus. Throughout the day, whilst I'd been chatting to you lot and looking at model railways, there'd been a whole host of speakers talking about a load of interesting and relevant topics. However, I wanted to head outside and have a look at a couple of the things that were happening out there, including the first rides being offered by the Coventry light rail vehicle. But also, there was Tram 16, now owned by the Very Light Rail National Innovation Centre. This is the last T69 tram to be driven before the fleet's retirement in 2015, and I got to get up and have a look inside the cab, which was really, really cool.
This is a T69, so it's the same Ansaldo make, just a different shaped body on it. So us and Manchester shared the same technology back then.
It's great to see one of these trams preserved, and there are plans at the Very Light Rail National Innovation Centre to give it batteries so it can return to service. And having pretended I was a driver, it was time for the main event of the day, and that was to be one of the first people to get a ride on the brand new Coventry light rail vehicle. This was its first ever day hauling members of the public, and I was really honoured to be amongst just those who are going to be able to ride on board the machine. Now, most of you will know that my mandate is mostly heritage vehicles, so normally this wouldn't excite me, but to be one of the first people to go for a ride was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. And once we'd had the obligatory health and safety talk, and the driver had gone through all of the controls using the touchscreen and set the ride height to compensate for the amount of passengers on board, we were ready to depart. The Coventry light rail vehicle is battery powered and makes use of something called opportunity charging. When it comes to a stop in one of its pickup places, there's an overhead which drops down to charge the batteries a little bit more, giving it a little bit more range. It, as you would expect, was silky smooth and quiet and super easy to control, the driver just using a single thumb. But that wasn't its main party piece, oh no. The thing that everybody was shouting about was its ability to go around a 15-metre radius curve. This was model railway levels of tight, and frankly, watching it, particularly from the air, was absolutely bonkers because I have never seen anything that would go around a corner like this. In fact, the Bant's rail vehicle that we reviewed a few weeks earlier wouldn't go round this curve without falling off, and that thing is tiny and gives you an idea of just how tight this curve is. And it's able to traverse this ridiculously tight corner at a whopping 15 kph. The only time that I can remember seeing a track of a equally tight radius in real life was when I've been to the fun fair and seen roller coasters. It is absolutely mentally tight. And what's even more impressive is just how smooth it is. The sensation is admittedly slightly weird, being on a rail vehicle going round a corner of this degree, because normally on a rail vehicle you can see the track laid out in front of you, whereas this, it's so tight that from the passenger seat the rails just disappear off round to the right. The Coventry very light rail system is more than just the vehicle, however, and includes the track itself, which has been designed in such a way that it can be installed without requiring major earthworks. This is to limit disruption and delay and cost during the installation. More so, due to the ability to go around very tight radius, a dedicated route doesn't need to be built, meaning it can follow existing roadways and go around buildings without costly construction demolishing work in order to take the new system. This is obviously hugely appealing for the future of urban transport, and also it doesn't half shift when they ask it to. And soon we arrived at the other boon for people who were having a journey on the Coventry very light rail vehicle, a journey through the tunnel. This is something the public don't often get the opportunity to do. In fact, I don't know of another time that the public have in preservation been able to travel through this tunnel, particularly not at the heady speed of 40 kph.
I did 8 miles an hour through here. It was a long time.
It's proper cool. Hey, so yeah.
As we were travelling much faster than the last time I'd been in the tunnel, we soon emerged back in the light of day and headed on further down the line. Lozz and I debated how awesome it will be if this machine gets adopted into widestream use, to be able to look back and know that we were there at the very start of its passenger carrying journey, and it will be really interesting to be able to compare how the design has evolved from this, the prototype, to an actual class member. It's also something I hope to come back and revisit. I've spoken to the guys about the possibility of doing a Lawrie Goes Loco on this very machine, so let me know in the comments below if that's something that you'd actually like to be able to see. It will be by no doubt the newest vehicle to ever appear on the channel, but I love the idea of actually doing a prototype. Soon we'd arrived at the other end of the line, where there is a small platform which leads to absolutely nowhere. However, we weren't going into the platform and stopped just short at the start of the 10 kph restriction. There the driver switched control to the other end and took out the immobiliser, ready for our return journey, where we got to have a good look at the controls, full of buttons and the touch screen system. This will display everything you need as you're going along. And as we flew back, we soon entered back into the tunnel, where I think I'll bring this video to an end. So I really hope you've enjoyed this snapshot of the BCIMO's first ever Family Day. They've never done anything quite like this before, and I really hope that they do it again. I wish I'd had more time to listen to the speakers talking about their areas of expertise, but I believe that they were all recorded and should be going up on the BCIMO's website at some point in the not too distant future, although I don't really know when that's going to be. And of course, a massive thank you to them for inviting me to come along and give a talk as well. I really enjoyed it, and that will be coming out on the channel later on this week. So with that, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, how about clicking somewhere over there for the Bants rail vehicle when we did this same section of line, or down there for some more model railway stuff. And with that, we'll leave you as we continue to hurtle backwards through the dark. Ta-la!